My name is Christy Kennedy. I am an alum, class of 2010. I am also an Albrighter. I don't know if there are any other Albrighters in the house, but I love to see that when there are. I am also proud to be a member of the alumni relations team here at Smith. I'm the director of alumni leadership and career engagement for the college. And in my role, I lead programs and events such as these that bring Smithies together to connect and build skills around professional goals, whatever those may look like for you. So we offer these virtual events quite frequently, usually about two a semester. And then we also offer in-person networking events and opportunities to connect live and in person. We also connect Smith alums with career coaches like Jamie. We have a team of career coaches who support these workshops and also offer that kind of one-on-one coaching. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And we compile on-demand resources for you to access at any time to meet your individual needs. And as I mentioned, those are available on YouTube through a playlist that we have curated for you. We also have a really fabulous career hub that we've just launched in our network platform, which is the digitally enhanced version of the alum directory that many of you may know and love. And we're going to go ahead and drop a link to the hub in the chat. But this is a place where you can go to find things you're looking for. We have access to free LinkedIn Learning licenses for all Smith alums who are interested to claim there. We have recordings of our past workshops and webinars and any corresponding resources. We also have a platform for you to reach out to any of our alum career coaches who are available for one-on-one coaching. So Jamie's in there along with her fellow coaching colleagues. Our goal is really to give you access to the resources you need to do what you'd like to do professionally and make your professional goals come to life and become realized. So Jamie Lee, class of 2004, is a certified executive coach who helps smart women who hate office politics get promoted and better paid without throwing anyone under the bus. In her practice, she blends the best of proven negotiation strategies, which she'll share with us today, with evidence-based neuroplasticity tools so her clients lead and advocate with confidence and ease. A South Korean immigrant, Jamie first learned the value of self-advocacy from the example of her mother, who single-handedly raised 3 daughters while running a nail salon and speaking broken English in New Jersey. Over a decade, Jamie has trained thousands of professionals in effective self-advocacy and workplace negotiation at leading organizations, including Citi, Unilever, Association of Corporate Counsels, American College of Cardiologists, UC Berkeley School of Business, among others. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jamie and she can get us started with our workshop. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you so much, Christy and Amy and everyone at the Smith College Alumni Relations Office for having me back for this comprehensive and very interactive webinar on how to negotiate higher salary. We have a lot to cover today. And I graduated 20 years ago, '04. I went to my 20th reunion last year, which was so much fun. And I'm going to share everything that I wish I had known much earlier in my career. This is the education I wish someone had given me when I was just coming out of college, and also through the early and mid career points of my employee life. I am now an executive coach who is independent, so I've been working for myself for nearly a decade. But before that, I was an employee. Before that, I did implement many of these strategies, tools, and techniques that I am going to show you today. So please don't be afraid to take notes, but also don't worry about taking so many notes because it is a comprehensive review. There is going to be a recording. I would recommend you rewatch the recording because we are going to cover a lot of ground very quickly. Now, having said that, I just want to give you a quick overview. We're going to do role play, as Christy said. I'm going to share some word-by-word scripts. I'm going to teach you how to use ChatGPT to leverage AI to your advantage. We're going to talk about self-advocacy beyond salary negotiation. We're also going to talk about how to do better than average when you do get a job offer and you want to improve that offer. I'm also going to invite you, for those of you who are interested in working with me one-on-one, I will invite you to book a complimentary hour-long consultation at the end. And also I will share with you additional resources because we're going to cover a lot of ground. But if you want to go a little bit deeper, you want to take more time learning more about some of the things that we cover, I'm going to tell you exactly where you can go to read articles, listen to podcasts, watch videos, and all that jazz. A fun fact, I so love helping women get promoted and better paid, as well as non-binary folks, that I have certified in both coaching, feminist coaching. But then the more work I did one-on-one, I realized that a lot of these issues are subconscious. We have subconscious blocks because who can blame us? We live in a society that is flawed and biased. We internalize that bias and then it goes unconscious, it goes up subconscious, right? For that reason, I also certified as a hypnotist. And all that means is that I just learned a lot of evidence-based neuroplasticity tools. So before we dive into the nuts and bolts of salary negotiation, I want to show you a really simple and great technique to get grounded, to help lower your stress and improve your confidence before any high stakes conversation, whether that is salary negotiation, a performance review, a raise negotiation, okay? So like I said, this is interactive. So I'm going to invite everyone who can and who is willing to stand up with me, okay? All right. Yeah, this is going to take literally 2 minutes. And what I will invite you to do is to stand with your feet slightly wider than your hips width. And what that does, it's almost like a yoga pose, right? I know in yoga there is the tree pose with your one sort of foot like lifted up. But in this one, we're just going to plant both feet on the ground. And we're just going to imagine standing tall, like one of those great champion trees on Smith College campus. Last year when I was back on campus and I did the Botanic Garden tour, that's what I love learning about our champion trees. We have some of the biggest, oldest, amazing trees. So now I'm going to invite you, just imagine that you embody that beauty, that gravitas of a champion tree on Smith College campus. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a power pose. This is something from Dr. Amy Cuddy at Harvard University, and she has shown with evidence that when you change your physiology, you change your neurobiology. So what you do is by taking this power pose, whether you have your hands on your hips, or you could also have your hands like this as a steeple, which is a great way to practice for how you hold your body in a salary negotiation, right? Not like this, right? Powerful, calm, grounded, exuding a bit of executive presence, right? And now what you're going to do is soften and diffuse your visual focus. So because I'm Asian, my eyes go a little squinty when I do this. You just soften and diffuse your focus. Now you just become, as you look ahead, I'm going to invite you to look just slightly beyond this computer screen, and maybe you look just beyond that, or at a point that's pleasant to look at. And now as you fix your gaze on that spot, engage in peripheral vision, which means without looking away, you soften and diffuse your focus and just become more interested in all of the space around that that focal point. And what this does, if you're doing this with me live, you might experience that shift of down-regulating your nervous system. And you just notice that your mind goes a little quiet. You feel calmer, a little bit more grounded. And now as you do that, I invite those of you with an active imagination just to imagine that from your feet, growing roots that help you become even more grounded. even more supported, even more rooted in this moment of all of us connecting here to improve our careers, improve our earning potential, here to support each other in a way, right? And so, okay, I appreciate those of you who did this with me on camera. And if you felt even just 1% shift in how you felt in that moment, let me know in the comments, okay? So the power pose, literally, just to recap, is something that you can do in private, whether it's a Wonder Woman pose or a steeple hand pose, in private for 90 seconds before you engage in a high stakes conversation. That helps you lower your cholesterol, not cholesterol, cortisol, the stress hormone, and increase your testosterone, which is the human hormone associated with assertiveness. Okay, cool. So thank you for engaging in this little exercise with me. Here's what is coming ahead. I'm going to give you the 7 winning steps right now. We're going to talk about challenging internalized biases. We're going to talk about how you can do better than the average and very common subpar tactics that many people know about, but they don't really know why they're subpar. I'm going to tell you why that is. I'm going to talk about assessing all-in compensation, which is a very important concept in salary negotiation. We're going to talk about advocating for your potential, which is a key skill that you want to take with you, whether you're negotiating for a job, negotiating for resources, negotiating at your current job for a promotion, a raise, or just wanting to put your best foot forward and be a better self-advocate. We're also going to talk about how you tie your ask to a mutually beneficial goal so that you make your ask that much more compelling, and making your ask very SMART, which is an acronym for being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. And all of this ties into a very simple 3-step framework that I teach over and over again in these workshops and to my one-on-one coaching clients with results. Also, we're going to talk about getting curious and not furious and how to utilize this strategy if and when you encounter pushback or no. So with that said, here's what you can expect. Just as a recap, universal principles of self-advocacy for professionals. You know, this principle, the 3-step framework that I'm going to walk you through, they're applicable whether you are advocating for your annual bonus with your direct supervisor, or whether you're advocating for yourself with a board, or whether you're advocating for yourself in a job interview. I'm going to share real case studies from corporate and nonprofit clients in my near 10 years of helping women get promoted and better paid. I'm going to share with you word-by-word scripts and ChatGPT prompts that you can adapt. So these are strategies and tools that you can immediately implement. But context matters. Some strategies may not apply in certain industries with non-negotiable pay. Some companies just outright tell you, this is the pay, there is no room for negotiation. And if that's what's written in their posting, and that's what it says on their website, like, we have to just take that at face value. So some places do not allow or not open to salary negotiation. And then there are certain consulting companies, as well as government agencies, where it's not a common thing for people to negotiate their salary, whereas it's more common to prove your credentials with a list of skills, degrees, and etc. So you want to be context aware when you are negotiating for yourself. Like I said, we're also going to talk about offer negotiation and negotiating a pay raise. So please be judicious with what does and does not apply to you. Let's talk about the bigger context. I'm not a fan of talking about the gender wage gap, because sometimes when we look at this information, I think it can have a distortion effect. Meaning, we look at this and we're like, oh, I'm an Asian woman. Am I over earning everyone else? if I'm a Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian woman, does that mean because of my identity, it automatically means I'm earning only 66 cents to the average white non-Hispanic man? And so we just want to take this information, which, by the way, is up to date. It was as of March 12th, 2024, so it's reflective of 2023. We just want to take this information and remember that no one person is an average. And even within these buckets, right, they broke it by gender and race, but even then, within each bucket, there are so many different intersections of identity that doesn't get fully reflected in this information. I know for a fact that some Asian women are under earning average white men, and it depends on sometimes it depends on your ethnicity, but really it depends on your level of education, what industry you're in. So there's so many factors. The key message I'm trying to drive home here is, yes, the gender pay gap does persist even into 2025, but let's remember this isn't your fault and it is the system at large. There are systemic biases that we are contending with, which is not great news. But here's the good news. Systemic injustices do exist. And there is space for personal action that can help you close your wage gap, get thanked by your employers and clients because you advocated for yourself utilizing the three-step model, and inspire others like you to do the same, and thereby becoming the rising tide that lifts other boats. It's almost like we have to embrace the paradox. Yes, the system may be flawed at large, and there's something that I can do for me that creates this ripple of positive change. I'm going to give you a quick anecdote about this. When I started really studying salary negotiation and the impact it has on other people, I started looking around for examples of people who are advocating and getting what they wanted. And I did not have to look very far. At one point, I was working at a very small tech company in New York. And we had hired these summer interns who were mostly NYU students. And it was a tech startup. So at that time, they were like, oh, we have to be as generous as possible with our perks so that we can attract great talent, just like the Googles and the Facebooks. It was about a decade ago. In any case, this young intern, a female intern, asked for a commuting expense reimbursement, something that none of us had received as a perk. But because this one intern asked for the perk, the entire company, the entire staff ended up getting their commuting expenses reimbursed. Again, there's that power of you showing up, you advocating for yourself, and it can create this positive ripple effect for those around you. So here's a thought experiment. What if negotiating your salary led to you earning $20,000 plus this year? What if you implementing something that you learned in this workshop gets you about 20,000 and more this year? I'm sharing this from my own experience, from having done that, having like, oh, salary negotiation, this is important. This is huge, game changer. It's not always just keeping your head down and doing great work. It's actually learning how to advocate and ask for what you want. And once I, internalized that, I started negotiating my salary. And at one point, I earned $15,000 more. And then at the next job, I negotiated again. I got a $20,000 pay increase. My job didn't materially change, but my pay increased by more than 25%. I went from making 80,000 as an operations director to 100,000. And this is what I did. I saved that money. I saved that money and I put it in a rainy day fund. I saved it and I went on vacation. I saved it and put it in my IRA. And then, eventually I got tired of working at tech startups. So I realized what I really want to do is help other women better advocate and make more money. I'm like, that sounds like so fulfilling. And so I took the money that I earned from negotiating and I invested it in myself. I invested it in coach certification. In other words, I used it as a startup capital for my own business. Also, with that money, I was able to be more generous with my family. I told, Christy told you about my immigrant mother who still speaks broken English. Yeah, and it's very common in immigrant families to give money to their parents, give money to each other. That's what I did. I also gave to the Smith Fund. I gave to other charities. This year I got to give to the LA Wildfire Fund, to the GoFundMe. And and get this, because I did this, I have become an executive coach who helps other women get promoted, get better paid. I have worked with several Smithies. And one of my Smithy clients, what she did was she applied the negotiation skills she learned working with me, and she applied that to her own life. She took that step further. She learned to trust herself. She learned to make decisions for herself and ask for what she wants. And she ended up also, she had real estate. She had a home. She sold it for a $50,000 profit. And she got to keep that. And again, put that money in her savings and retirement account. But in addition to that, because she learned to advocate and stand up for herself, she also made a major life pivot possible. She went from working in academia and feeling so unhappy. She pivoted. She got a job in private sector. She negotiated a $20,000 pay increase there. And she's now living in a completely new city, a completely new life, right? So think about the impact, the ripple effect of you negotiating, earning, even if it's just $20,000. I know it doesn't seem like a lot of money right now, especially if you're making six figures already, but in the larger context of things, what is the ripple effect it can have on your life? Also, negotiation is a life skill. It will have an impact on your life. Having said that, let's talk about common challenges, because I know we're here because we want to get through those common challenges. So as you can see, I grouped them under confidence, the worry, oh, I have an offer, but if I negotiate, what if they rescind my offer? Or the worry, why would they pay me more? I still need to prove myself. This is something that I hear over and over and over again from highly educated, smart, competent women. And then there's the knowledge bucket. I don't know what to say in an offer negotiation. I don't know how people get raises. I don't know how they get promoted at my organization. It all seems to happen behind closed doors. Or there's the belief, I don't want to seem greedy. I don't want to seem too cocky. That was one of the questions that was submitted along with registration. Or some people think I need to be loyal, or they have this sense of guilt, right? I should keep my head down, work hard, not make waves. I know I was taught that from my immigrant parents, but I know it's not just immigrant families who teach that belief, right? You should just be grateful, for example. That's another common belief that we are taught from society, culture, family. And then maybe, there's also the motivation challenge of I'm beyond caring about my salary growth, professional growth. I'm not interested in earning, saving, investing, or spending money. So I'm curious, for those of you, which of these buckets do you fall into in terms of challenges? And if you feel like, wait, isn't one the other? If I have this confidence, it's also like I have a belief problem. If I have a belief problem, it's also bleeding into my confidence. You're right. It's a bit of a trick question. But just for the sake of simplicity, yeah, knowledge, belief, confidence and knowledge, confidence and knowledge, confidence. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that knowledge. Okay, okay. So, yeah, I appreciate everyone. Someone said all except motivation. Yeah. Okay, we're going to address every single one of these challenges, okay? But I want you to know this was a trick question, because if you have any confidence or belief or even knowledge challenges, I do believe as a feminist coach that That is partly because we live in a society that teaches women to take up as little space as possible with our bodies, with our wants, with our voices, with our desires, with our bank accounts, with our career growth. And therefore, I want you to know it is not a moral failure to have absorbed common myths and half-truths perpetuated by a world biased against women identifying, non-binary, Black, Indigenous, people of color folks. Okay? No shame here. We want to extend some compassion to ourselves, because if you have some of those common knowledge, confidence, belief challenges, it's mostly because we've absorbed some of these myths and half-truths. So let's fact check them one by one. Ready for this? Okay, I'm just gonna go down the line. What if they rescind my offer? I had a one-on-one conversation, a coaching session with somebody, a woman of color, highly competent. She had gotten promoted in her career, and she'd really been great at negotiating at every step of the way. And then at one interview, one potential employer, once she let them know that she wanted a better offer, they completely rescinded their offer. Okay, and here's what I told her: you've dodged a bullet. When you are negotiating your offer, that is the nicest they're going to be to you. Okay. Yes, there are ways you can do negotiation in a way that is, subpar, and we're going to talk about that. There is a way to do it in a way that, like, ooh, we don't want to work with you. Of course, that can exist, but by and large, people in this webinar, people that I've encountered, smart, competent women, if they rescind your offer because you stood up for yourself, sometimes it just means you dodged a bullet, right? You don't want to work with those people. Why would they pay me more? I still need to prove myself. This is the voice of imposter syndrome. And when we are in imposter syndrome, we are biased against ourselves. So we're not able to objectively assess the total value and impact of our contributions, which is always a multiple of your take-home pay. The total value and impact of your work, like imagine a giant pie, a giant pizza pie, that's total value and impact of your work. You showed up on time, you were professional, you're already creating value, right? And your pay is just one tiny slice of that. And that's not because employers are evil. No, that's just the function of market economy, right? Price for the total price is a subset of the total value. So why should they pay you more? Because we haven't yet told them, we haven't articulated the total value and impact of your work. That's why. And if you think I still need to prove myself because I'm not good enough and I still have my doubts, don't let that internalized bias drive the car of your negotiation. Just like, okay, we hear you. It's not a moral failure to hear that itty bitty shitty committee voice, but we're going to just put that aside. Go to knowledge. You're at the right place if you don't know what to say in an offer negotiation. I'm going to teach you how to use ChatGPT, and I'm going to show you word by word, as well as share more resources with you. I don't know how people get raises at my organization. Listen to this. The best fuel for negotiation leverage, for negotiation success, I think, is curiosity, not confidence. Confidence is what you have as a result, right? But when you don't know and you get curious and you start having conversations and you start asking around, you start having coffee chats and informal chats that give you insight, now you're growing your knowledge base, now you're growing your leverage. Therefore, curiosity is the winner. Let's go to the belief section. I don't want to seem greedy or cocky. By the way, somebody said, I don't know how to do this without seeming too aggressive or cocky. If you are worried that you're going to be too cocky or aggressive, cocky and aggressive is the last thing you're going to be. I know, because people who worry about that are, I'm going to speak for myself, because I have been almost always riddled with so much doubt that they're hardly speaking up for themselves. And you think, oh, if I speak up for myself, that's going to be a violation of this internalized norm that a person like me shouldn't take up my space and speak up, right? So I want you to take this in. When you do this well, self-advocacy becomes an act of service. Literally, your bosses, people around you, stakeholders, will thank you. They will say, thank you for speaking up. Thank you for telling me what you want, because it helps make my job better. I'm going to show you that framework. Okay, so you're being the very opposite of aggressive, cocky. That's not you. It's the last thing you're to be. And don't worry about being greedy, because listen, let's just admit it. We live in a world where money is a form of power, and power belongs to you. It is okay for you to want more money. It is healthy for you to want more money. Okay? I owe this organization my loyalty. No, loyalty belongs to you and your future self. Research has shown that when women make more money, they invest it back in their communities and families. I should keep my head down, work hard, and not make waves. Give me a moment. I have something. When you have that thought, when you have that belief, this is called tiara syndrome, okay? I have this prop for a reason. And tiara syndrome is a term coined by Carol Frolinger, a female negotiation scholar. And tiara syndrome is when you think if you keep your head down and do good work, almost like, 90s Disney fairy tale, someone's going to reward you automatically. And we all know that never ever happens, because we don't live in a fairy tale. We live in the society that has many challenges. Yeah. And so we want to name it to change it. We're not going to wait for someone else to plant a tiara on our head. We're going to put our own crowns on, right? We're going to own that as a sovereign person. It is my responsibility to speak up for the total value and impact of my work. I'm going to show you how. And I put an X over the motivation, because if you have motivation issues, you're not going to be here. You're not watching this webinar, right? Okay, so here are some common subpar tactics that I hear over and over again, and it kills me. It is a pet peeve of mine. Whenever people are like, well, I did my salary negotiation, I got an offer, and I can't give the first number, because I hear everywhere on podcasts and articles that, that's how you lose the negotiation. And here's why that's a subpar tactic, because it confuses where your real leverage, where your real point of power is. People mistake negotiation as something, I'm sorry, unfortunately, some political leaders come to mind. It's about wheeling and dealing, and it's about playing like a numbers game. But in professional salary negotiation, your point of leverage is not whether or not they know your desired salary. It is whether you're grounded and you are aware of the full value of your future potential for that other side. That's your real leverage, not whether or not you give the first number. And if you are negotiating a pay raise, if you're already working inside an organization, some people are like, well, I'm just going to have to go get a new job offer and ask my employer to meet it or exceed it, or otherwise I walk, right? That's gamesmanship. It's not bad. It's just subpar, because it does risk the relationship. It means I don't want to be here, right? That's what you're implying. That's what you're showing. Sometimes it works, but it's not great if, you want to keep those bridges and not burn them. So here's my suggestion. More nuanced, proven tactics that I have walked my clients through over and over again, and they work, okay? Offer negotiation. Never anchor your ask to a previous salary. In fact, I believe in New York State and a couple other states, potential employers asking your previous salary has been banned. And here's why. We do know that gender pay gap exists. And if you're a woman of color, you're more likely than not to have a pay gap. And so if you start your ask based on your previous salary, you're more likely to perpetuate, stay stay earning less. Am I speaking English? Am I speaking English today? You know what I mean? Okay, thank you, Samantha. Samantha's like, I got you. I appreciate that. This is a mistake I made very early in my career at one of my very first full-time jobs after Smith College because no one taught me this. I had to learn it the hard way. I got an offer at a hedge fund. I studied Japanese, by the way, at college at Smith. And so I speak Korean, English, and Japanese, and they wanted somebody who was trilingual to work at this hedge fund. And I was coming from a beauty company. I was working as a buyer. I was negotiating with vendors. And they asked for my salary expectation. And I didn't know any of this. And so I just blurted, well, something a little more than what I'm making now, like $50,000. And here was the presumption. I was in my tiara syndrome. I didn't even know. I thought my future employer will take care of me and offer something that is fair and better. And no, my dirt, like bottom, very, very low salary expectation became my base salary, right? And then I asked, can we negotiate this? And they're like, nope. Huge mistake. Don't make my mistake. Do this. Research going market rates for your role. Ask for a specific number at the high end of that range. And there's so many different ways to research. You can talk to people, talk to Smithies, access that career hub that Christy talked about. Ask alums who've been in your field, who've had the job you want, and also use Google and perplexity.ai or any of the other tools that are available on the internet. The third bullet is super interesting. If you have done your research, but you're still like, well, I don't know what their high end is. I don't know what this potential employer's high end is. This is something a client taught me. She said, she asked them, what is your high end of the range for this job? And how do you determine that? And they said, this was at a major financial institution. They said, we determine it based on your level of credentials, education, and specific experience relevant to this job. She said, great. Here's how I fit into every single one of those. Here's how I have the credential. Here's how I have the degrees. And here's how I have that specific experience where I can excel in this job. That's how she secured the high end of that range. Here's another one. This is a masterful one. Secure multiple offers. This takes planning. This takes timing. Multiple offers at the same time, compare them side by side. That's what I mean, compare all in comps. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. And then get potential employers to outbid each other for the privilege of hiring you. Because what is salary? Salary is simply the price, right, for your services. And again, we exist, we operate, we work in a market economy. And the price can go up if there is more demand for that service that you're offering. Now I'm going to go down to negotiating a pay raise in case you are already inside an organization and you want to do it better. This is important. Find out how, when, and by whom promotion and raise decisions are made. They're almost always made by a committee of people behind closed doors. Learn when and where the organization or your team is in terms of funding and growth phase. This applies to both nonprofit and for-profit organizations. I worked with a Seven Sister alum who really wanted to improve her pay. And so we were working on a negotiation strategy. We talked about how she can ask for more responsibilities or promotion. We tried all of that. And she's like, it's just not working because my organization is not growing. Our constituents are aging. And, I just don't see how our organization is going to grow. And so she thought that this was like, okay, maybe I just go get another job. And then within our coaching container, the organization was a nonprofit, a national nonprofit, got a donation from a funder in 7 figures, a 7-figure donation. And then just shortly after that, she got an email that everyone in her organization is getting a raise. So again, you want to be mindful of where the org is in terms of funding and growth phase. It's easier to get a promotion and pay raise, usually around or right after there is uh, influx of money. For me, when I asked for a pay increase of $20,000 at a tech startup, at first they said, we can't do it, not right now. And then a couple months later, when they raised Series A, when they raised venture capital funding of millions of dollars, they're like, okay, we can give you that raise now. Here's 20,000 extra dollars. Okay. Very, very important if you are negotiating within an organization. Many people ask the question, what is the best time to renegotiate your salary? You want to start this process 3 to 6 months ahead of budget decisions. So you want to find out, when are budgets decided by decision makers? And then you want to start that self-advocacy plan and start having those conversations 3 to 6 months ahead, not right after. If you ask your boss right after they've, met with the other leaders and decided the budget for next year, let's say it's like November, because usually this happens around October for companies that run their year on a calendar year, right? If those budgets just got decided, or you find out this just got decided, but you're like, I still want a raise. And so you ask them, can I have a raise for next year? That's not going to be great for your boss, right? That might piss them off because they're like, listen, you should have told me earlier. I just went through all this back and forth with everyone else. It's already been decided. I mean, it's a little late now. I can't do that. You're going to have to wait. That does happen, okay? So this does take research. This does take some planning. And also, here's what you do. You offer a promotion plan. Your boss can socialize up the food chain to the ultimate decision makers. And here's why, because often if you are in the middle of your career, your manager may also be a middle manager, right? They may not be the ultimate decider. Let's say if you're a manager or a director and you're reporting to the VP, and the VP is like, well, I gotta run this by the SVP or the CFO. They're the real decision makers on this. You want to offer a plan of action, that they can bring up and run by the ultimate decision makers. And this is the reason why you want to start this 3 to 6 months ahead of the budget decisions. So you can do all of that if you like where you are, right? And you want to grow there. But if you're really sick and tired of that place and you're like, just being here is making me sick, I just don't have any sense of joy or learning, that is when you go get a new job offer and then ask your current employer to meet or exceed that offer. Just to see, like, okay, do I really want to stay here, right? Because you don't want to put all of your eggs in just one basket. So you do this only if you're 100% ready to leave. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about how to assess all-in compensation. What you see on the right side of this is a screenshot of a resource guide, completely free. You can scan this QR code. You don't even have to give me your email address. If you scan this QR code or you type in this URL over here, you will access this completely free guide, and I explain all of the things that are negotiable beyond salary, beyond your base pay. Because sometimes people get stuck on base pay, but your compensation is so much more than base pay. And also if you work at a nonprofit, or if people tell you really can't, improve your base pay right now, then you want to get flexible. You want to get creative by thinking outside the box and think about all the different levers, at least 50 of them, 50 plus. I think this list is like 57 or 56, all these different things. And if you go here, you can also access my easy to follow explanations, links to more scripts, word by word scripts that a human wrote, in case you want to access a human written script, more articles. I have a podcast where I explain a lot of this. As you can see here, there is a podcast episode called 8 do's and 6 don'ts of salary negotiation. That is by far one of my most popular podcast episodes, something that I recorded. I share more of my personal experience and insights. And there is a sample all-in compensation table, so you know exactly how to compare things side by side, and more things you can negotiate. According to Harvard Business Review, when women negotiate their career progression, flexibility, development, benefits, access to leaders, so much more, you become even more fulfilled, even more gratified in your career, which is also worth is so much, valuable, so much, and it could be even more valuable than just getting, a small salary bump, right? Because it can improve the overall quality of your career experience. Having said that, if you're really curious, like, okay, but how do I actually do the all-in comp comparison? Here, I'm going to give you an example. Again, this is something that's available in that free resource guide. This is something that I put together inspired by an actual client of mine. She right now is the VP of Finance at a startup that does AI technology. But before, when she first engaged with me, she had taken a sabbatical. Okay, so this is not her exact data, but it's inspired by her. And the most recent employer was this company. She was the senior director, and she did financial reporting. She also helped with fundraising, which her base pay was below $200,000. And as you can see on the left side of this table, I've listed all the different considerations or all the different levers that can be negotiated or may be negotiated, right? So beyond salary, there's bonus, different types of bonuses. And there's equity, different types of equity, and different ways that equity is turned into money. That's the vesting schedule and anticipated exit event. And then there are all the different benefits. They can differ as well as a health savings account, 401k match, right? So if you can make a really simple list like this of all the different levers, different ways that you're compensated, and then compare them side by side, you see a slightly different picture. You see, if you just think about base salary, you might be like, well, it's not all that different from the previous employer and the prospective employer, because previous employer was 190 to 210, prospective employer is 200 to 225, right? It's not all that different. But once you add it all up, you see at the bottom, the estimated total compensation, there is a big difference. It's almost a difference of $100,000. So again, I'm going to tell a quick anecdote about my client who did negotiate an offer to become VP of Finance at an AI tech company. And they also offered her something very similar, base salary of, low 200,000. But she knew, she had done her homework, she had talked to people, and she knew people who worked at this particular company. So she knew that they could pay her more. And she really wanted to become a VP. And she also wanted to be better compensated through equity, through restricted stock units in this example. And so she advocated, she stood her ground, even though they pushed back. So she stood her ground and she was able to secure the higher end of the base salary. She ended up making 230,000, as well as improving the equity compensation package. So she got a little bit more than what's on this table, but just going to show the power of comparing all-in compensation and also the power of having information. And if you can have that sort of insider information from real people, it gives you that like boost of confidence. You're like, I know I can do this, right? So she stood her ground and she got it. Having said that, some of you are asking, okay, what do I say? Now we're going to go into that, okay? Before you advocate for your potential, okay? Now this is where the context is sort of widening, because I'm going to walk you, after this, I'm going to walk you through the 3-step framework. And they can apply this three-step framework can apply to job interviews, salary negotiation, pay raise negotiation, resource negotiation, okay? But before you do that, we want to take our brain intentionally beyond what you have listed on your resume, beyond your to-do list, beyond what you feel like I got done, okay? We're Smithies, we love getting stuff done. I know that for a fact, right? But when you love getting stuff done, this is the thing that happens. Like imagine this whole image, right? With the ripple and the water drop. This is the totality of the impact and value of your contributions. But when we hyper focus on what just got done or what hasn't yet got done, right? Because when you're like worried about, oh, I still have to do this, right? We're focused on what hasn't yet got done. It's almost like we're getting lost in this little dot. We're just lost in the little droplet, and we're missing out on the bigger picture. So how do we take our brain beyond what got done? We have to ask ourselves, okay, what happened as a result of my contributions? What does it enable? Because there's a secondary impact. What else can happen as a result in the future? A client of mine was having trouble with advocating for herself. And I said, what are you doing? What's the work you're doing? She's like, I'm doing so much work. I know I'm doing like 3 people's work. But what's really important is getting this newsletter out. I'm like, okay, why is that important? Because it needs to get done. That's the immediate impact, right? There's a schedule. Okay, but why is that important? What does it enable? Well, it goes out to the stakeholders and all of our clients. And when they're better informed about what our product does and what it can do, they're more likely to buy. It helps us improve retained revenue, improve goodwill, improve profits. Okay, so that is the beyond impact, right? It's not just you writing a newsletter. You're doing something that improves the reputation, the goodwill, the retained earnings of your organization. So you have to keep that in mind when you advocate for yourself. So what we just talked about is this first circle in the 3-circle model. Every time you advocate for yourself, make sure you address each of these circles. And here's why. If you don't address your contributions, the potential and the benefit, right, the ripple effect that we looked at in the previous slide, they're going to be like, well, have you done your work? Are you really making a contribution? They're going to be like, are you? Not because people are evil, but because managers and leadership, they're busy. They don't always have oversight over what you do and why it matters. Sometimes you just need to remind them again and again and again, right? So again, that's why if you're negotiating pay raise from within, you want to start this 3 to 6 months ahead of time. And then number 2, you want to articulate the mutually beneficial goal that is future oriented. I talked to somebody who said, I just got my MBA. I asked for a raise. They didn't give it to me. I'm mad. I'm like, okay, but getting your MBA doesn't do anything for this organization. It doesn't drive the mutually beneficial future goal, right? That's all about you. This is nothing about them. That's why your negotiation didn't work. She didn't like hearing that. Okay. It's like, but I'm supposed to get a pay raise when I have another degree. Well, sometimes the real game is articulating what seems obvious, but making it abundantly clear. We're here working together toward a mutually beneficial goal. Your team, your organization wants to grow. Businesses exist to make money, right? And so you want to tie what you're asking to that goal. And if you don't do this, they're going to be like, well, why should we give you that pay raise? What do we get? What's in it for us? We already paid you for the work you've done. That's already water under the bridge, right? Quick side note, do not make your case for a pay increase based on something personal. Do not say, well, I'm going on a honeymoon. I need to, pay down my student loan debt, or Smithies don't have a lot of student loan debt, thank goodness, but you know what I mean, right? If you went and got a graduate degree somewhere else. You want to tie it to something that is relevant to the decision maker, the mutually beneficial future goal. And this is a winning strategy, especially for women, especially for women. Smart requests, you got to be really clear, right? Valentine's Day is coming around. Sometimes we just sit around and wish our significant others will read our minds and give us the flower and the love and the adoration, right? And does it work? Not always, because people are not mind readers. Employers are also not mind readers. That's why you want to make that request really clear. In fact, I suggest, I'm going to go against the grain, don't give a range. If you say, I'm expecting something, between 250 and 300K, they're going to give you 250, right? They're going to give you the lowest number. Again, not because they're evil, but it's in the interest of the organization to hire the best talent for as little money as possible. Pick a number and then go step or two above it. If you want 250, you can start with 275. Why? Because the only way you go in a negotiation usually is down. You create wiggle room for yourself. Okay, so this framework is something that you can easily adapt, okay? And here's how you can adapt it to leveraging ChatGPT or your AI co-pilot, okay? Use this framework and tell it about you. You have to tell ChatGPT the information that is most relevant. You have to give it context, and then you have to give it very specific instructions. So here's how we leverage this three-step framework. Tell it about you. Here's my desired role. Here are my relevant contributions. Here are some things that I think are accomplishments or transferable skills that's relevant to this desired role. And then also give it even more context. I'm negotiating with this organization. I mean, here's what I know so far. Their goals and priorities are to improve their profit margins by 25% in the next fiscal year, or to deliver to achieve their nonprofit mission and reach 10,000 more people in the next year. With that in mind, help me craft language to articulate how my skills and future contributions can help drive their goals, right? And then you could also ask it to help refine your negotiation script. Based on this, write a negotiation script that's professional, concise, while anchoring for 250K base salary. I should have changed that to 275, but you know what I'm suggesting here, right? And I think this is something that you can use if you're like nervous about how to answer what is your salary expectation question, or if you just want to tell them, here's what I'm expecting, right? So you save everyone's time. I did this with my own framework, and here's what ChatGPT offered me. I was thinking about my former client who is a VP of finance. So her example may be something like, I bring 10 plus years of finance leadership, including scaling budgets from X to Y, saving Z dollars annually through cost initiatives. And I secured XX dollars in funding. I'm looking forward to applying these strategies and skills to Bees Knees Incorporated. With Bees Knees Incorporated recent goal of raising $100 million in Series B, I understand how critical strong financial leadership is for sustainable growth. My goal is to drive profitability and build the financial infrastructure needed to support your next phase. Based on my experience and the current market for VP level finance roles, I'm targeting a salary of 250K. This reflects the value I bring and aligns with the strategic impact I'll deliver. And of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts and work together on an agreement that supports both my contributions and the company's goals. So this is, again, just a sample language I thought was pretty decent. And if you don't want to sound like an AI bot, totally get it. You just take this as inspiration. You think about, okay, how do I say this in my own tone, in my own language? And again, if you come to my site, you can access the free resource guide. I also have my own human developed scripts that people have actually used to improve their pay by up to 100K. Now, let's talk about getting past no, because when you ask for something you want, sometimes you get no. And that's not a sign that you did it wrong. It's a sign that the real negotiation may be beginning. Okay. And here's a dead simple but profound tactic that I have suggested people use. And people, when they implement this, they're like, wow, this is actually super useful in so many different ways, right? My mentor, my negotiation mentor, Lisa Gates, always said, just form your mouth into a W. Why did she say that? Because you're going to start a question starting with these who, what, where, when, why, how words. You're going to ask an open-ended question. Here's the power of this. You're going to move from no win blame game. Are you lowballing me? That's no win blame game, right? Are you kidding me? That's the blame game. To future-oriented problem solving. How did you arrive at this number? Help me understand, how this is calculated or where you're coming from, right? So you move from labels, assumptions, right, which is oppositional, to facts and actionable insights. Curiosity is the best emotion to utilize when you're negotiating, even more than confidence. Confidence will come as a result, right? But if you're a little shaky, a little nervous, a little awkward, and you are courageously curious, you will improve your results by many folds. I guarantee it. Having said that, here are some examples of those questions. This is something I like to invite one or two of you to practice with me live, because with everything said and done, you want to utilize strategic pessimism. It is true that women tend to get more pushback than other people. I mean, I hate to say it, but it is true. So we're going to be like, okay, let's prepare for it. Let's not, be personally offended. Let's not blame ourselves. Let's be like, okay, we're going to get prepared ahead of that. Yeah. So, okay, before I do this, here are the instructions. I'm going to ask for one or two brave volunteers to practice negotiating with me. But get this. You tell me what you're negotiating, and I will be you. You will be the decision maker. Okay? So you get to see how I will handle your negotiation situation utilizing this framework. Okay? So this is what we're going to do. You're going to set the stage. Well, I'm going to set the stage. You're going to tell me what the situation is, and then I'm going to be A. I'm going to make the ask, and then you get to be the person who's like, no. Okay? And then I'm going to follow up with an open-ended question, and then you're just going to improv this. You're going to get creative and you're going to answer the question. And then based on that information, I'm just going to reframe, re-ask. I'm just going to keep getting curious, not furious. Keep getting curious, not furious without giving up. And we're going to see what happens. All right, BB. So tell me what you were negotiating for and with whom. And you don't have to go into too much detail, just like high level information is good.
Okay, I'm negotiating for a VP position at a public institution in higher ed, asking for 250. The max is 185.
Okay. Why do you think they will say no at your ask of 250?
It's not within the budget. The range that we said is the range that we said.
Okay. And what's a really good reason for you to ask for 250?
Based on my experience, credentials, and future earning plans, like you were talking about.
Got it. Um, what do just give me one aspect of that, the value impact exercise. Like what really stood out for you when you thought about how you would take yourself through that? Like did something really like come up for you? Like, oh yeah, this sets me apart.
I think, and I don't know if this is correct, but I'm still going to say anyway. I think just based on because this is actually a real life scenario of my life. And so just based on political landscape and what's coming up, like this job is going to be extremely challenging to do within the landscape of the United States.
Thank you very much for that information. Okay. And who are you negotiating with?
The hiring manager, the person who at the end of all the interviews is just like, hey, loved your interview. This is the offer. We'd love to talk about salary now at this point.
Are you the SVP? Or does a hiring manager have a title?
I don't know. I haven't gotten to that point yet.
Okay. What should we call the hiring manager? Let's give him a name.
Ruby.
Ruby. Excellent. So BB, you're gonna be Ruby. I'm gonna be BB. Okay. Let's see what happens. I have no idea what's gonna happen. Let's see what happens. Ruby, thank you for making time to speak with me today. Based on the conversations we've had, I feel very confident that I'd be able to hit the ground running and make impact in a way that hasn't been done before. And based on my research, I understand that I'm entering this role as vice president in a politically challenging landscape. And I'm really committed to going the extra mile to make this position a success. And for that reason, I like to be considered for compensation that is beyond the current budget. I like to ask to be considered to be paid at $250,000 in this role. What are your thoughts about that?
Thank you so much, BB. You've been a great candidate, have gone through all the steps. Right now, we're not able to offer that just based on the budget that we have for this position.
I appreciate that information. And also, when and how are budgets set?
Budgets are usually set in April, and then we start negotiations in July.
Negotiations for.
Pay raises after the budget has been set in April.
Got it. Okay. And given that we're having this conversation in early February, I understand that the current fiscal year budget has been set, but it seems like there are 2 more months before we revisit the next year's budget decision. Is that right?
Indeed, and we're actually looking to hire pretty soon, so that would depend on the current candidates that we are considering, giving us an answer around salary pretty soon before July.
By the way, can you share with me how the current pay range was decided?
Jamie, I'm sweating. Oh my God. I'm like trying to be creative and come up with stuff. Okay.
You're doing great.
Like I don't know how they were set.
Yeah.
Make stuff up on the fly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a different question then. Thank you. You're doing wonderful, by the way. And again, I'm very confident that I'll be able to hit the ground running, and that's why I'm asking for something that is beyond the current budget. And I understand it does take time. It does take a lot of work for the budget to be decided. Having said that, would it be possible? How about if we revisit this with at the end of my 3-month probationary period? Because again, I'm confident I can hit the ground running. And if we are hitting those milestones, is it possible for us to revisit the compensation conversation, let's say sometime in late Q2?
Yes, I think that would be possible. I need to speak to my supervisor who makes the final decision and get back to you within the next 48 hours.
Excellent. Okay, end scene. You did really great. Okay, I'm just curious. What was you said it was kind of like I don't know what to say. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes literally it's just an open question, and they'd be like, "We don't know. Let me get back to you." Right?
But that felt really good though, because I think that will give me the confidence to one, prepare,
Yeah.
because the other person also needs to be prepared. Because if I keep asking questions in a non-judgmental, curious way, and they need to give me answers, or else I'm not going to stop asking questions and
Right.
ultimately get what I want.
Yes. And in this mock role play, I just assumed that BB does want this role. And for that reason, that she was willing to make a small concession of like, okay, I'll take the 185, but could we revisit it, right? And I know executives who do exactly this, who say, let's revisit the compensation, whether that is a bonus, a sign-on bonus, or something else, whether we increase that base salary. We have a promise to do that. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, BB. Amazing. So here's the summary. When you challenge those internalized biases, you grow your self-leadership. Instead of being led by the nose by the nonsense that everyone wants you to internalize, you're like, no, I'm gonna make decisions for myself. I'm gonna choose myself. When you assess all-in compensation, you make informed decisions. And when you advocate for your potential, you build confidence in yourself. You build confidence as a professional, and that shines through. When you tie your ask to mutually beneficial goal, it grows your positive influence, especially if you're doing this inside the organization. When you tie your advocacy to mutually beneficial goal and you do it again and again and again, you will also grow your leadership influence. You will grow your leadership presence. When you make smart requests, you get better results. If you tell your partner, I want I want a dozen red roses, and I want dinner at the fanciest Chinese restaurant, and that's what I want, you're more likely to get it, right? And the same principle applies in self-advocacy and negotiation. Get curious, not furious. We just did this mock role play, and notice how that builds leverage, right? My favorite quote from Chris Voss, who wrote the book Never Split the Difference. He used to train FBI hostage negotiators, so he's the negotiation guru. He says, if they're talking to you, you have leverage, right? If you get curious and not furious, they keep talking to you. You learn more information. You could use that to reframe, re-ask, leverage. So I want to give everyone an opportunity to get started today, because as you see, these are skills, these are career skills, these are leadership skills. They will impact the quality as well as they will impact the quality of your career experience, but it'll also impact your income growth, right? And your career satisfaction. And for those of you who are mid-career and who want to build their leadership presence, want to build their self-advocacy skills and really like turn up their career growth, I want to make an invitation to book a free hour-long consultation with me. And the consultation, I call it a blueprint to confidence session, because it's an exploratory conversation to ensure one-on-one coaching is a slam dunk fit for you. And you will leave with your custom step-by-step blueprint to achieving your career goals with confidence. That includes advocating for yourself, negotiating for yourself, showing up with that leadership presence. Who's a great fit for this? Mid-career manager, director, VPs, people with C-level ambitions, people who want to just feel more gratified or fulfilled because you spoke up and you became your best self-advocate. And you want to know how one-on-one executive coaching can help you confidently advocate and achieve your growth. And you want direct, no BS feedback and expert guidance, because that's how I am. I don't BS anyone. I'm just going to go straight to the point. So again, this is an invitation for those of you who want to explore this, dive deeper with me one-on-one. Here's the QR code. Here's the URL, calendly.com/JamieLee/consult.
One question that came through from Jen is actually related to the kind of back and forth that you just did with BB. What if they shut down and answer that they can't provide information or otherwise stonewall your questions? How do you respond in that kind of scenario when you're in the negotiation and trying to find those open-ended questions?
So according to Jared Curran, who is a negotiation professor at MIT, the most important factor in any negotiation is how you feel. because how you feel about yourself, how you feel about them, how you feel about the process, how you feel about the outcome is the biggest driver of your behavior and therefore your outcome. So if they stonewall you, they just go quiet, you want to be able to just sit back, maintain your composure, and try something like tactical empathy. And tactical empathy might look like, hey, it seems like, is it possible something I said put you off? Or it seems like, the conversation has gone cold. Is there something that is coming up? In other words, what you're going to do is you're going to verbalize using this framework. It seems, it sounds like, here's what I'm noticing, right? And reason why that works is because, again, non-judgmental, non-reactive, just noticing what is can often create the effect of curious, not furious. And sometimes if they're willing to play ball, they will share something. And if they just keep stonewalling you, then you just go elsewhere. Again, it's possible you're dodging a bullet, right? Yeah, because unfortunately, there are some employers and managers who just aren't great negotiators. They don't know how to negotiate well.
Right, right. Or aren't really actually in a position to negotiate. That's something that that I've encountered quite a bit from other folks that I've worked with in the past who just find that they might not even be talking to the right person. So I think that goes back to your point earlier about really understanding the structure of the organization and who is a decision maker, and really getting familiar with how those decisions are made within that organization, kind of as early as possible in the process.
That's right.
There's a question from Brenda asking, this goes back, I think, to your all-in comp. How do you determine what is a good equity amount to negotiate? Or is there a consultant or someone who you can hire to assist you in that process to determine when you're kind of making the right ask?
Again, come to my free resource guide. By the way, you can also access it directly from my website because I wrote the article, Getting Startup Equity. Here's everything you need to know, okay? And here's the very short answer. At the end of the day, if you're getting equity, that's what she's saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the company is private, it hasn't yet gone public, so it's not listed in the stock market, then it's really anyone's guess as to what can and cannot happen to that company's stock. At the end of the day, you have to trust, you have to do your research, gather facts, and then you have to ask yourself, do I genuinely feel like this is going to be one of those unicorn companies that makes $1 billion and makes huge splash in the industry? Do I really feel like it's one of those 1 in a billion companies like Facebook or Meta or Google or Nvidia? Or I don't know, I'm noticing some leadership challenges, and I'm noticing, oh, there are some holes in their business plan. Like, you have to really think like an investor yourself. You have to think about it like, would I want to invest money into this company? Right? And if it is a hell yes, then yeah, you negotiate, you try to get, as much equity as possible. But you're like, I don't know, if I was an investor and they asked me to give them $10,000 so they can achieve this thing they're trying to do, might I have a lot of questions about that? Then I say ask for more cash.
I think we've covered where you can research market ranges, but if you want to just reiterate that quickly, what you kind of referenced earlier about where you can find information, you said talking to other people who are in the field. What are a couple of those other things?
Google it. Literally type in, hey, I am being considered for a role in this region, and I have this level of experience. Where can I see market range salary data? There used to be payscale.com, salary.com. There's so many, right? But at the end of the day, I have found that talking to real people gives that extra oomph, right? You're like, oh, it's doable. Real people make this money. I'm a real person. I can make that money.
Right, right.
So I want to invite you to balance the online research and talking to people like alums, like colleagues, like people in your network, like recruiters. Yeah.
Great. I think one last question. Esme is asking about negotiating prospects for freelancers and consultants. I've been with a foundation for 3 years.
You can use the same framework, the 3-step framework. I was once a freelance bookkeeper. And I thought about how can I best negotiate the highest rate for myself. I mean, bookkeeping is a job that can easily become replaced by AI right now because it's data entry, right? But when you do bookkeeping for a small company, here's what you find out. You find out the CEO had been doing the bookkeeping. And they're like, I hate doing this. This is data entry. I could be coming up with product ideas. And so I sat down with the CEO who wanted to outsource his bookkeeping to me. And I thought about how can I make the best case for myself? And I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to save you like 20 hours of your work hours every month, right? And 20 hours of work hours for CEO is worth so much more than what a bookkeeper usually makes. And so I said, I'm going to ask for this retainer of like, I was asking for like, I don't know, $3,000 or $4,000. Back then it was a lot of money for me because it meant, oh, I don't have to worry about rent. But for the CEO, it's like, oh, okay, a couple $1,000 a month. And I don't ever have to worry about bookkeeping and worry about doing it wrong. Got it, done. It's yours, right? And I knew that was there was a high rate. So again, use the framework. If you've been with the foundation for 3 years, then it's time to give them, here's what we've done. Here's the contributions. Here's the impact of that. I know where you want to do. And here's the additional services. Here's how we can improve what we're doing so that you achieve your future goals, right? That's the second circle. And then you add it with, that's why I like to be considered for this rate increase of 20, 30%. Yeah. You're going to find out I'm a freelancer, I'm a consultant, I'm a coach, right? I find out they're people who are not as, talented or skilled who are making like multiples of what you make. I mean, I find out for myself too. So sometimes it just is a matter of being willing to risk that ask and finding out and then negotiating. Great question. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Well, that was great. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to thank Jamie for joining us today. As a reminder, Jamie has mentioned this a few times. We dropped it in the chat. She is offering a free consult. In addition to Jamie, I just want to remind you, Smith is here for you. Our alum career program that we lead, this is what this is, right? It's bringing you all together to learn from amazing fellow Smithies. We have resources. We have the career hub and the network platform. That's where you can find each other. That's where you can find these resources. So please avail yourself of those amazing resources. Be in touch with me if you have questions about how to do that. And join us for more sessions. We have drop-in coaching sessions once a month where you can just come and connect with a group and hear from other coaches. And we're also going to be having an interesting coaches conversation in March about non-traditional career paths. So if you find yourself in that area and you're interested in hearing from more of our coaches, we have some great events coming up. So just please keep in touch. We're here to support you. You'll hear from us with these resources. Thank you all for coming. I hope you found it as useful and interesting as I did today. And we hope to see you again soon.